Thank you, David, and yeah, likewise. So what am I going to talk about tonight? David asked me to talk a little bit about my experiences as a regenerative farmer through COVID. Now, farming and food continues, of course, through COVID. That's the positive bit. So I'm probably going to focus a little bit more on personal and business issues with two of my hats on. I wear many hats, but I'm going to focus on Conigry Farm, which is the farm that I run as a tenant, and Farm Ed, which is what I do 4 days a week, running a farm and food education centre down the road on regenerative agriculture. So the two fit together very well. So David, thank you for asking me, and it's a pleasure to be on your webinar. Hopefully that's going to work. What's the contents? I'm going to cover, I can't talk about regen ag without talking a little bit about the definitions and what it means to the industry, but also what it means to me and the team at Farm Ed. I'll introduce Farm Ed and Conigry Farm a little bit, what our business aims are, our objectives, and then dig down towards the end a little bit more about what COVID-19 has done to us, sort of impact, and how we've responded. There's nothing remarkable in there, but hopefully there's one or two stories and lessons to learn. And then we'll stop for questions at the end. So I'll probably speak for about 20, 30 minutes if I get into it, and then there'll be 20 minutes of questions at the end. People say, what is regen ag? I'm going to start with what it isn't. And those pictures really sum it up for me. That is not regenerative agriculture. It's all very sexy and clever, and it's about efficiency and ag tech and trying to feed 9 billion people, but it's not regenerative. I don't think we're going to stop it. I think there'll be more of this, whether it's floating dairy farms or whether it's the pig hotels and more indoor livestock systems, but it's not regenerative in my world. It's not something I'm a big fan of. It's also not this. It's not bad soil management. It's not about ploughing with lots of horsepower. It's not about monocropping and vast tracts of commodity production. And hopefully it's not about climate change. You know, regenerative agriculture is totally the opposite of those four pictures. And it's not this either. Again, we're not going to stop this, and really exciting too, you know, with entrepreneurial and innovative hats on. Proteins grown in labs and processed plant-based foods. I can see the benefits, but for me, it's not regenerative. These things are not the things that are going to save the planet. They might make quite a lot of money for shareholders, and it will free up land maybe to do other things with, but I don't think it's the ultimate solution. Exciting nevertheless. So what is regenerative agriculture? It's basically, for me, it's about going beyond sustainability. You know, we've been talking about sustainability and farm conservation for decades, and it's not really got us anywhere. Most of the metrics, whether it's soil health or farm profits or biodiversity or water quality, animal welfare, generally, you know, negative, going down still. You know, climate change, CO2, etc., nutrient use, water pollution, still negative, negative, negative. Doesn't matter how many billions we throw at it. So we need a step change. We need to do something different. And that's where this thing called regenerative approaches, regenerative agriculture come into play. And it's all about increasing biodiversity, building better soils, improving water catchment, enhancing nutrient cycles, making the most basically of our natural capital, but building it, enhancing it, regenerating it, which is crucial. And if we get it right, it's about capturing carbon into soil by getting organic matter into the soil, but also through above ground biomass. You know, it could be trees or lots of green stuff on top of the soil. And if we do that, we can start to lock in carbon from the atmosphere back into the soil where it belongs. And if you think about it, only farming and forestry can be carbon neutral industries. All the others, all industries are depletive by their very nature. We need to extract value from somewhere. And you extract value either from the soil or our natural capital, or you extract value from people. They're the two great ways of making money, and we've done it for far too long. But farming and forestry can start to put carbon back where it belongs and become carbon neutral. Airlines, car manufacturing, making shoes and widgets cannot be carbon neutral, truly. They will rely on farming and forestry generally to put the carbon back to where it belongs. So really exciting. If you get regenerative approaches correct, and if you build it and link it and make it complex, you can increase your yields. Now, you will hear a lot about regen ag, it's about yield reduction. At the moment, yes, it is on many farms, but if you get it right, we can show you can increase yields. With more research and innovation, we'll be able to show that more and more on many farms. Regenerative agriculture should be about better animal welfare, about lower input costs, particularly things like nitrogen and chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which of course take energy and diesel to make, but also are polluting. If you get it right, it improves our resilience to climate change, and hopefully you get healthier farmers. It's not just about farm businesses here, but healthier farmers and growing communities, which are crucial. And hopefully that leads to better profit and more rewarding work. That's sort of where regen ag normally stops, but I like to take it further. And with my farm ed hat on, which I'll come to in a minute, we want to take it a lot further. Regen to us is about rebuilding functional landscapes, about engaging with the community and consumers. It's about local food systems, and to please David, it's about rural enterprise and entrepreneurship and jobs. There should be more people working in the countryside with rewarding work, and more enterprises, not less, as we go forward. Ultimately, it's about a diverse, regenerative, circular economy, linking it all together. I'm sure you've come across terms like agroecology, organic, holistic management practices. Yeah, regen works with all of those, tries to link it together, takes the best bits, overlaps. Yeah, perfect. Working with nature. So it's kind of the same thing, but with a slight difference. But all those terms link and play beautifully. Where did regen ag come from? Well, it came from America and brittle environments, really. Australia, Canada, bits of Africa, conservation agriculture, maybe it was called many years ago, still is. But regen ag has really taken off in the States. I was very lucky to be a Nuffield scholar, travel the world looking at regen ag. And I didn't think it was going to take off because I thought the word was too lumpy and it was a bit ugly, and people just wanted to talk about sustainability. Let's not confuse the issues by introducing another term. But 3 or 4 years ago, there was a change. There was a big wave, and it's bottom up. This is the beauty about regen ag. It's about farmers and communities and growers making a difference at ground level. And it started with small farmers, maybe like me, but now it's the big farmers, it's the bigger growers taking it on. And now it's the big corporations and governments taking it on. You look at America, you now have General Mills who make your Cheerios in the morning, asking all their farmers and supporting all their farmers to be regenerative. So it's now at corporate level. So it's a movement still at farmer level, but it's now getting serious. I've never known in my 25 years in this industry such a step change and a wave of change. Really exciting. Very quickly, I haven't got long enough to go into the principles of regen ag at farm level, but just to say there's 5 key principles, then a few little extra ones that I'll add on at the end. Principle 1 is about minimizing soil disturbance. Basically, put the plough away if you can. Use minimum and zero tillage. Let the soil thrive. Let the mycorrhiza do its stuff. Let all the fungus and bacteria do its work. Stop throwing pesticides and chemicals at it, and let the soil really start to live and work for you. And that's about leaving it alone. In a growing situation on the left there, in a market garden, it's maybe about a no-dig approach. Again, stop digging the soil, turning it, making lovely seed beds, by the way, but not always the best for yield and health and a thriving soil that's resilient. So leave the soil alone as much as you can, principle number 1. Principle number 2 is about crop diversity. We must move away from monocultures, say of wheat, barley, oilseed rape, ryegrass, maybe with a little bit of clover in. We must move away from those very basic crops to very diverse cropping. I have farmers now with 10, 12, 20 different species in their grass lays and their temporary grasses, who might be growing 40 different cereal crops in a cover crop or a wildlife crop, or heritage wheat with 6, 7 different varieties in, trying to do different things, maybe undersown with 2 or 3 other things like vetch and clovers. This is all about getting diversity into the system. All those different plants do different things. They rootle for and they scavenge for nutrients, they bring up water, they feed the mycorrhiza and the worms and the grubs in the soil and the bacteria and the fungi, all doing something wonderfully different, all with different leaves and structures, taking that solar energy, turning it into sugar in the soil and feeding the soil with their soil exudates. Biodiversity, you just look at that picture, lots of different colours, pollen and nectar, great for insects and bees and all sorts of wonderful things. So we must do much more around this polyculture. You'll never come across a successful ecosystem that is based on a monoculture. Healthy ecosystems are diverse by their very nature. We must use that in our regenerative agriculture approaches. Principle 3 is about keeping the soil covered. So when you get your crop off, say in the autumn, you get your wheat or your maize or your corn, you mustn't leave bare earth through the winter. The organic matter just drifts off into the air or washes off into the river. So we must use cover crops, undersowing, etc., to really protect our soil over the cold and wet winter months. Principle number 4, integrate grazing livestock. Something close to my heart, which you'll see in a minute. If we're going to grow all this green stuff and this diverse stuff in these arable rotations, what we're going to do with them? Well, we turn them into protein. And we use, say, particularly mob-grazed cattle, maybe some sheep, maybe pigs, some chickens, to utilise this forage for really healthy protein, nutrient-dense protein. They are cycling the nutrients as well, those animals. They're putting their poo and wee all over the field, scattering it around, treading some of the organic matter back, that green stuff back into the soil to feed the worms again. They're crucial in a system. And if you get it right, they can be carbon neutral. If you're not putting fossil fuel into that system, effectively carbon negative. The methane cycles every 7 years, so we can move to a really low input, healthy, thriving, regenerative system with livestock in it. And that poo it's crucial for the soil bacteria and fungi. And the final principle is seek living roots all year. Don't overgraze, don't destroy things. When you overgraze or damage the stuff on top, the roots retract, they stop working, they stop functioning, and you've lost that plant for 3, 4, 6 months maybe. It takes time to recover. So if you look after the green stuff, you look after the soil beneath. And if you can feed that soil, it'll get off to an early start in the spring and you'll get better yields. So we're talking about maybe more perennial cropping here, more mob grazing, leaving tall grass, etc., where you can. So they're the key 5 principles, but it's not just about dog and stick farming like I practice. Ag tech does come into play here. We do need more sensors and robots and data and stuff. And I'd like to see a robot that does weeding for me, for example. So I don't use the plough, don't use Roundup or glyphosate. I want lasers to zap all my weeds. I want drones to tell me how my soil and my crops are functioning. So it can be quite innovative and exciting, not just about animals and doing some basic farming stuff. It's also about enterprise stacking. Let's move away from wheat, barley, oilseed rape, quite basic commodity production. Let's utilise every acre for more enterprises. Think about diversity. Think entrepreneurially. So let's grow some cereals. Let's have a diverse rotation with grass in. Let's put the cattle in first, and then the sheep, and maybe pigs, and then chickens. And of course, let's have lots of bees and apiaries around the side. We can make the most wonderful honey and sugar. Then have agroforestry for fruit, etc. You turn a business that might be 1,000 acres employing one person, producing commodity cereals, maybe to a business that employs 10, 12, 15 people and lots of local healthy food. So think about enterprise stacking and how that can make us more resilient and diverse and hopefully more profitable. Shorter supply chains, which I'll come on to in a minute, are crucial through COVID, played a really important role. I'm a big fan of that, and I think that is crucial in a regenerative system. Let's not just make commodity that we ship abroad or feed to animals. Let's make real food for people in our bioregional or in our bioregions, for example. We need data. We need more evidence, and we need it labelling so that consumers can make better choices. Lots of work happening on that at the moment. I won't go into any more detail, but you know what I mean. So hopefully the future will be regenerative, and it will focus on something we call land sharing, where every acre delivers more than one public good. We believe that farmland and our countryside should deliver food, biodiversity, landscape, hold on to water, public access, education, nutrient cycling, flood control, heritage and history, genetic diversity, locking in carbon, climate change mitigation. Crikey, if we can do that on every acre, we're winning. And that's the role of tomorrow's farmer, is to balance those public goods. That is in opposition to what you might hear quite a lot about, land sparing, where you take land out of agriculture, out of food production, maybe plant it with trees and deliver one or two public goods. Maybe you lock in quite a bit of carbon, maybe you produce some wood fuel and some biodiversity, but it's a more simple system, basically taking land out of food and farming to deliver a monoculture maybe, or another crop or another specific outcome. I'm more of a fan of sharing and doing more with every acre. Rewilding, I'm sure many of you are into wilding. I used to take students to NEP and I love NEP. I do want to see wilding across the UK and across the globe, but it's in the right place, linked together to maximise its benefit, and always recognising that we must produce food. And again, COVID really brought this home to us, I think, as will Brexit, say no more. So just to talk a little bit about my business interests and where I'm coming from. I wear two hats, as I said at the start. 4 days a week, I'm the general manager at Farm Ed, which is the new Centre for Farm and Food Education based here in the Cotswolds, near just just on the edge of Oxfordshire, actually. It's a community interest company. It's new, we're just launching, and we'll be doing one or two things for last year, but well, we were going to have a big launch this summer, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. It's funded, or the original funders were Ian and Celine Wilkinson of Cotswold Seeds fame. You may have come across Cotswold Seeds as a business. They are a wonderful family and they wanted to put something back into the industry. So they bought this farm, Honeydale Farm, it's 107 acres, and wanted to build an education centre around regenerative food and farming. So I'm there now managing this, the education and all sorts of stuff. The mission, we are here to help with the transition towards a regenerative agriculture approach and sustainable food systems. We have to link it all together by providing space, opportunity for inspirational education, research, practitioner-led knowledge exchange, events and personal development, mentoring, consultancy, etc. So a big mission, a very exciting one. So do come and see us. That's what the farm looks like, a bit of a map. Very diverse, again, an 8-year rotation, herb-rich lays, heritage wheat, cereals, undersown cereals, permanent pasture, forestry, agroforestry, heritage orchard, apiaries with bees, a 3-acre CSA, community supported agriculture scheme, stroke market garden. So lots going off, lots of habitat too, and the education centre and the food building right in the middle. And basically we're talking about everything from soil health to gut health and everything in between. So quite a big ask, but very exciting. Who are we aiming it at? Our audience is everybody, which drives my marketing team up the wall, but we're talking to communities, schools, families, researchers, universities, including the RAU, who we're very close with, a close working relationship with, farmers, agronomists, new entrants into agriculture, and there's lots who want to get into farming, foodies and chefs, career changers. We're working with the ex-military folk, businesses, entrepreneurs, NGOs, policymakers, government, you name it, we're talking to them. It's really exciting. So do follow us if you are on social media. Conigry Farm is what I do the other 7 days a week. Somehow squeeze it in with my wife, Mel. Conigry is a 180-acre organic and regenerative farm in the Cotswolds. We're a National Trust farm on the Sherborne Park Estate, which is basically in the heart of the Cotswolds. It's where they filmed Spring Watch probably 3 years ago now, for 2 or 3 weeks. Now our passion is again soil, rebuilding wildlife habitats, reconnecting with the local community, and food, but also fun and agri-tourism and linking it together. We see that fun bit, the experiential bit, as the capstone to our work. That's where we sell the sizzle, really, and hopefully make a profit. And just like Farm Ed and just like the regenerative stuff I was talking about a second ago, it's all about diversity. In my mind, no ecosystem is simple and no business should be simple. You need eggs in different baskets playing off each other. That's the farm, just to give you an overview. Cotswold Stone Farmhouse, pretty little place. We've got traditional Hereford cattle, the rare ones with the horns, only 2,000 of those in the world. Cotswold sheep on the right, again, about 2,000 females in the world. Don't know why I've got rare breeds. They taste very good. We've got lots of beehives making our own honey from the wildflowers. We've got lots of wildflower meadows and pastures, and these things, the herb-rich lays with a deep-rooting chicory and sainfoin and soil-building crops, basically. And in the middle bottom there, we've got these tipis. Like I said, education, tourism, events, festivals. That's the capstone to our work. Brings it all together, where we can tell stories and sell food to people. I'll come on to what happened in COVID in that business, but that's a new business. We launched it 2 years ago. It's slightly entrepreneurial of me and taking a risk, but we'll come back to that one. And bottom right, that's the newest venture on the farm. We've got a 2.5 acre, 3 acre market garden with James, who's the guy in the shorts in the middle. Now he's a young farmer stroke grower, a new entrant, and we formed a joint venture with James a year ago. That's Mel in the middle, my wife. And James puts all the hard work and the knowledge in. We put the land in and some infrastructure. We help him with routes to market and a little bit of labour. And that's how the joint venture works. He takes most of the profit, he pays a small rent, and we take a small bit of the profit. And we also buy stuff for our pop-up shop, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So that's our latest little entrepreneurial venture on the farm, trying to link it all together. That move from agriculture to horticulture is crucial. That's where the industry is heading, I think. More local food, more nutritious, plant-based foods. Wonderful. So just focusing down a little bit on what the impact since March has been of COVID-19 on the 2 businesses I'm heavily involved with. I was going to call this presentation, What a Year to Launch 2 New Events Businesses, but I didn't. I kept it the same for David's sake. But yeah, what a year to launch 2 new event businesses. Farm Ed, what are the negatives about COVID? What's happened to us at Farm Ed? Well, of course, we cancelled all our summer events, and it was going to be a really big summer for us, a big launch, possibly with Prince Charles. We tried to get David Attenborough to come and launch it with us. He said no. And we're going to have lots of big festivals and food events and modules and learning events, but yeah, obviously didn't happen, which from a personal point of view, very frustrating. It's better to plan twice than not at all, so I wasn't totally disheartened. But yeah, it's been a tricky summer for us. Financially, we've lost quite a lot of income from not running these events, but also we haven't spent as much. So your profit is down, but not massively. We can survive. We've lost momentum, that's for sure. Personally, me trying to drive this thing, stop, start, can we, can't we, is quite demotivating at times. And that's something I'm sure we're all feeling. And as general manager, I've had to try and keep the team moving and keep things positive wherever we can, but that's not easy. And lack of focus, when can we reopen? When can we run these big events? Should we plan this for next April? We're still not sure. Also, just thinking about competition. It is a competitive market out there, whether you're in education, tourism, food or farming. We have a novel, unique proposition at FarmEd, but it has allowed people to sit in their farm offices or at the work desk and come up with similar, not similar ideas, but to catch up with us a little bit in the thinking and the business offer. We've still got something very unique, and we are working with one or two of the others that are now jumped into the space, which is good because it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. But we're not as unique maybe as we were a year ago. And stress and anxiety, I can't stress enough. It takes its toll. And I don't think we always know it's happening. I think we all feel there's this thing somewhere out there coming to get us, and we never quite relax or chill or feel happy. And that affects team morale, it affects work relationships, and it needs managing. And even at FarmEd, we're a really small, friendly family team, but it has taken its toll a little bit. We're coming out the other side of that now for sure, but it is something to bear in mind for all your businesses and ventures at home. Positives, there's lots of positives. I'm going to probably dwell on these a little bit longer. For sure, regen and sustainable food has been proven to be more important than ever to society. And whether that's at local level, national or globally, I hope it speeded up this transition to a more regenerative, sustainable future. And we need to cash in on that, all of us. There are new business opportunities there. I've never been a big fan of webinars and podcasts and stuff online. And David at the RAU, I'm sure will vouch for that. I'm not the techiest of people, but we've all had to. And I actually really enjoy them now. And not only have we delivered a few, but I've sat on a lot of other people's, or piggybacked a lot of other people's webinars and podcasts, which means FarmEd has got to a range of audiences that we'd never have got to had we continued on our normal path of face-to-face learning and outreach. And that's a span across the globe, which is really exciting. In a way, I'm glad it happened this year and not next when we were in full swing. So we should be happy about that and not too down. 2019, I joined FarmEd in September 2019 and into 2020. It's basically been a startup business. I've been there at the start, building works, putting budgets together, recruiting staff, coming up with logos and the mission and the strategy. It's been a really busy year trying to get the thing finished and the buildings finished. So it has basically been a startup company. It's been very intense. So actually lockdown and COVID has probably allowed us just to reflect a little bit and slow down and just take a breath. And that's crucial. I think it might have killed one or two of us if we'd continued on the path we were on. So it's not a bad time, just take a step back. It's allowed us to finish off all the building works, which weren't going to be quite finished for our big launch. That's taken some of the stress off. And hopefully it means we've got a better product at the end of the day too. And it's allowed us to do lots of talking, mainly on partnership development and wonderful ideas, being creative and fundraising. And the fundraising has been really important to us, which has given us financial security for the next 3 years. And we've built the team. We built a young team, and we've recruited from far afield as well, people starting now. And that maybe we wouldn't have taken our time, I don't think, to have done that if we were full bore this summer. So they're all positives, all resulting out of COVID-19. Conigary Farm, what are the negatives? What's happened on the farm? Well, as I say, food production continues, so the farming hasn't really changed. But we did postpone our summer events in the tipis. It was our first year of weddings and mini festivals and all sorts of things. So all those have been put back to 2021, which inevitably has meant we've lost income. But it's not gone anywhere, it's just a cash flow issue. All those events have just been moved to 2021. So the money still comes, just 12 months later. Luckily, the banks have been very useful through COVID, and I'm sure many of you have benefited too. It's the cheapest money we'll ever get just to help us get through that. And I'm sure many businesses have borrowed money that they're going to invest in new products and services in the future. There will be winners. The Market Garden, the joint venture with James that I spoke about, we launched it effectively last February. well, this February, just before COVID hit. We started with a box scheme. We started delivering to local restaurants and hotels. It was really picking up pace. And then suddenly overnight, we lost that market, which is really quite, the impact would have been massive if we'd not flexed very quickly. I'll tell you what we did in a sec. But luckily we were small enough and agile enough to change and seek different routes to market. Another big impact for us, and I'm sure it's the same for many other businesses and farming businesses, our landlord, in this case the National Trust, are not in a great financial position. And that is going to hit us eventually, because they were going to invest in new buildings, finishing off projects, helping with leaky roofs on the farm, fencing, painting the house that we live in. And that ain't going to happen now this year, next year, maybe not the year after. And that has all sorts of implications. So the knock on down the chain financially is quite significant. The positives for the farm, people were desperate. You've seen this. People were desperate for local food, for box schemes. They didn't want to go to Tesco anymore. So we cashed it in on that quite quickly. We got the box scheme up and running. That went really well from March. We also opened a pop-up farm shop on the farm every Saturday. Very simply, not much tech involved. It was basically a Facebook post into the local villages and towns. And we had a queue of people at the farm every Saturday just for 4 hours. And we sold out every Saturday through the summer. Wonderful. And we could sell our meat, we'd sell our honey, the veg. We started to work with local food heroes. So we got sourdough bread from the baker down the road, cheese from a organic raw cheese maker, juice from a local juicer, all sorts of things, pickles from a local chef. So we were benefiting other local businesses too. We got flour from the local mill as well that FarmEd are now supplying. So the food chain, the multipliers of that were very evident. It tailed off as lockdown ended. People started to go back to Tesco. People went back on holiday as well in August and started to do other stuff. But in September and definitely into October, November, sales have gone through the roof again. It's gone really well. So we have a decision to make. Do we build on this now? Can we hold on to those customers? Or will the recession that is undoubtedly coming put pay to that? Will people spend on regenerative organic produce next year? We've got a really tricky decision to make. But it's profitable at the moment and it's fun. That's the other key thing for me. Speaking to customers every Saturday about the food they purchased and what they did with it, and isn't it great tasting, and wow, this is wonderful. It brings the joy back to food production. Just thinking about the weddings, they've all gone back to next year. So that's great, lots of demand. Can we deliver it? I'm not sure yet. It's going to be really busy, and with FarmEd events too, sort of doubling up, it's going to be a real challenge. But I'm sure we can. Might need to employ more people and do more delegation, which is another thing altogether. The other positive for me about COVID, and I've heard it from many people in the rural areas, is that they spent more time in the countryside, walking, working, eating, and just time with the family. And I did really enjoy that for 6 to 8 weeks. And I got time to reflect a little bit about where I'd like to be in a few more years' time. And I've heard that from many others too. Brill. So that's a quick overview of Regen Ag, FarmEd, COVID-19 and Conigry Farm. So I turn to questions now.